Hello everyone, welcome again to my channel iDrone. Today, as I told you on the first video, I'm gonna take you out through the parts of having a quadcopter. I'm gonna go through everything that this little guy has. We're gonna go through some ESCs, we're gonna go through some motors, props, camera, antenna, receiver, flight controller, video transmitter, power distribution board, and the terminals too. I'm actually going to talk to you about the terminals and the difference between them. And then, as you can see on this one has LEDs. So when you actually plug it in, let's plug it in so you guys can actually see the lights. You see, when you plug it in, it has blue lights on one side, red side on the red lights on the other side, and there is a very particular reason why they are different colors and why is that I have them there specifically. So I'm gonna actually talk to you about that too, and this guy's kind of jumpy, so let's go ahead and unplug it, and I'm gonna go ahead and actually talk to you about everything that is in here. But I'm gonna do that on the bench. I'm not gonna do it here, so you can actually get a better close-up of everything that I have on the table and what it does and how it connects with each other. So let's go ahead and go into this part 2, or what it will be the parts of the quadcopter. And then on part 3, I'm gonna start putting the parts together, putting the quadcopter together, and teaching you a little bit more of what it takes to put one of these together. So give me 1 minute. Let me go ahead and actually get you guys to point at the bench so you guys can see everything that I have here. I'll be right back. Hello everyone and welcome back. As you can see, we're at the bench and we have a whole bunch of parts right here on the bench, including remote, including goggles, including frames, motors, video controller, flight controller, transmitter, power distribution board, a camera, batteries, and some props that you actually don't see, but they're here. So here you go, props. And one thing that you're missing is actually the FPV antenna. But let's go ahead and actually start putting and talking to you about the parts, how they connect and how they go together. Like for example, this is gonna be the receiver. This receiver works directly with this guy right here. They talk to each other and this one controls the quadcopter. So this receiver has to be connected to this controller. You control it, you connect it through this bind button that he has here and this little bind button that he has here. And there is like a gazillion videos out there on how to actually do that. So I'm not gonna go ahead and actually show you exactly how that's done. But you know, they need to talk to each other and they need to be the same type. Like for example, this one is Fly Sky and so is this one. That's what the FS on, I don't know if you guys can see it. The FS here is for Fly Sky. And this is also a Fly Sky radio, so they talk to each other. So that's one thing right there that is part of the whole FPV side of it. So as you see, this is the complete drone, but everything that is on this drone is actually here on the table somehow. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually break it down for you. The frame, this is a different frame obviously. So this is one of the frames that I'm working on. This is the Sparrow M3. This is a tiny 139 frame. Once you get experience building quadcopters, then you can jump into something like this because it's a little bit more complicated to build. It's not as easy to build as it will be like a 210 frame or something bigger that you have a lot more space. Here you really need to know what you're doing in order to build it. But let's say that this is a frame, so you need the frame. Then the frame is you're gonna have, you see, this is the frame. Then you're gonna have the motors. So on this one I have the motors. There are different types. This is hobby made motors. These are the, you know, like I said on one of the videos before, this is very low cost, cheap motors. I think it's 28 bucks for the whole 4. So it's cheap on this one. I have this motor that are still cheap, but they're a different type. You can see that this one, for example, the type of bolt that it has on the top is a nut instead of being something like this one is like a little cone thing. It's still a nut, but this one have the nylon, so it won't come back out, because these motors, you have two ways of getting the motors, that they just turn in one direction and then you reverse the motors through software, or you can get them that are like this, that for example this motor is only gonna turn, well, it's not that it's only gonna turn, it should only turn this way, because in order for you to actually take the nut out, you actually have to take it the other way. So when the propeller is actually turning, what it's doing is actually getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So it's actually good, because your propeller will not come out and the nut will not come out, and then you will have a problem with that. So that's one thing on the motors. These motors, they just turn, they're meant to just have the nut going the regular way, you know, righty tighty, lefty loosey, and then the nylon on the nut is for them not to back out, and with that you just tie them, and that's it, you're done. So on the frame, you're gonna need two things, and this is where things starts to actually get a little bit more. Let me actually move the camera from here, move this from here, so you guys can actually see this better. Here on these two guys is where things start getting a little bit more complicated, and the reason why is because this is a power distribution board, but it's a power distribution board that has on-screen display. So you can actually have, when you have your goggles, this one actually can transmit information to the goggles to lay over the screen, and then you can see, for example, the voltage of the battery that you're using, or you can see the name of your aircraft, or you can see many different things, how many amps you're using, how many, you know, what is the voltage on each cell of the battery. There is a lot of things that you can actually see through the OSD. And this power distribution board has a bypass and it has an OSD, and it's one of the more complex power distribution boards that are out there. Most of them are simple. You know, you have a bar, they have filters and regulators, but they're not that complex like this one. This one has a lot of stuff that can go into it. You can have ESCs, you can have the battery, you can have the camera, you can have the OSD, you can have the video receiver here. So it's very, very complicated, and it's not the best to actually use on your first build. Your first build, you want something simple. You want something where, you know, you have power, you put the power of the ESCs, and then that's pretty much it. The ESCs, and then from here, then you connect to the next part, which is the flight controller. This flight controller is a new type of flight controller. I really prefer this type of flight controller. The reason why I prefer this is because it's something that actually saves you space, and the reason why it saves you space is because this is the one that I'm using here. For example, I don't know if you can see that there is only two things here. The bottom is the power distribution board, and that's it. And those are the only two things that you're gonna see there. And the reason for that is because this guy is flight controller, is video transmitter, is OSD, and is basically everything else. And it's also black box recorded, and nowadays you can actually record, you know, the data from your motors, from what you did, what didn't you do, the inputs and all that. It gets recorded. If you put an SD card here, it gets recorded. So this is an all-in-one, what they call all-in-one flight controller. There is no real, like, per se 100% all-in-one controller. They're really the all-in-one controller is either all-in-one but the power distribution board and the ESCs, or is all-in-one but like the video transmitter, which will be this part over here. So either they have one but not the other. I haven't seen one flight controller that has everything, that has power distribution board, that has video controller, that is flight controller, that has OSD, that it has literally everything integrated in one. I haven't seen that. And to be honest with you, I tried this one on this quad, and since the moment that I put it in, I noticed the difference and I really liked it. So I have tried to, whatever I actually buy a quad, or that I'm building a quad or doing anything with a quad, I try to use this flight controller, because this flight controller for me is actually one of the best ones. The video is really good. It's easy to work with once you get to know it, and it's simple. Good solid flight controller. So on the flight controller, you have, like I said, you have video transmitter and you have all that. But let's say that you have a simple flight controller that is just flight controller and on-screen display. At that point, you're gonna need this part over here. This part over here is what is the video transmitter, which is this guy over here. Come play with us. There we go. Okay, so this is the video transmitter. This, as you can see, is a very old technology. I don't know if you noticed that it has pins. This is from like 10 years ago, but this is a brand new one that I had lying around. So I'm doing a build, and I'm planning on putting this one on because I haven't used it. It's brand new in the box, and it's actually at 600 milliwatts. So that's actually gonna give me some power on the signal. It's gonna give me good signal. So I'm probably gonna end up using it for the build that I'm planning. And this is what it connects to the next piece, which is this little guy over here. Now, you don't have to go with this type of camera. I went with this type of camera because I'm actually gonna build an Acrobat, and an Acrobat is designed to carry this type of camera. This camera is all-in-one. This camera is a camera that records in high definition, and it's also a camera that works as a regular FPV camera. As you can see, it's almost the same size as this camera, the yellow camera, but this one is a little bit deeper, a little bit bigger on that side, right? And then, as you can see, it's attached to a board, and this board attaches to the board that is on the bottom. That's where you actually put the car and you record. So these two go together, and then this camera will go ahead and actually record everything that you're seeing in high definition, so you don't have the need to run a GoPro. This will make the function of the GoPro. And for what I can see, and for what I have seen in videos, the picture that comes from this camera on high definition is really good. So, you know, I'm gonna put that on my Acrobat and see if, you know, if I can actually get that to get the same picture that people on Tommy and all those people are actually getting out there. So we went through the frame, we went through the flight controller, we went through the power distribution board that you're gonna need, we went through the video transmitter, and we went through the camera, and we went through the motors. These actually are the motors. The motors are exactly the same as this motor. These actually the boxes that they come in, but it's exactly the same motor. These are the motors that I'm gonna start using, because I'm actually really happy with the results that I get from these motors on small builds like this one, and like this one, the 139 that I'm building. So, you know, I'm gonna be buying those motors more often. Then obviously the battery, this is definitely not the battery for this. Almost the battery is bigger as the frame, but this battery, and this battery is completely puffed up, but I don't use it. I just use it for testing, like I just did, you know, to program stuff or to go ahead and actually do this. And when you have a battery like this with this much damage, you have to be very careful on how you handle it. I've been handling batteries for many years, so I know exactly how to handle this battery. But this specific battery is one of the batteries that I have that I'm actually just about to dump in a bucket of water with salt. let it discharge and then get rid of it, throw it away, because it has too much damage already, and it's only like pretty much one crash away from, you know, going into flames and taking the drone with it. And to be honest with you, it's not worth it. You know, $20 for a battery, you know, is something that you just go buy another one and that's it. And this was really me just not paying attention back when I was, you know, new to the electrical flying stuff. So this battery is pretty old, but yeah, I didn't know that you couldn't over discharge the battery because it will get like this. So I used to do that all the time, and that's how this battery got to that. But whatever, this is an old battery that I have. The new batteries, they actually come like this. These are the batteries for the Acrobat. I haven't even opened them yet. I have to change the connectors and everything. But this is like this is an 850 battery. I'm gonna open it here with you for the first time so you guys can see it. And this is gonna be actually, technically this should be the battery for this frame, but I'm not using it for this one. I'm using it probably for the Acrobat because I believe this is a 3-cell. I believe this is a 3-cell, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is a 3S. You see, it says there 3S 25C. That's how you know the type of battery that you have. It says the amperage, the number of cells, and the discharge. So this is a very tiny battery. Whatever, it's probably not gonna give me that much of flying. But you know, I was buying some other stuff and they were on sale, so I just got 2 of them, and I have them there. And to be honest, I haven't used them yet. But that is what the battery usually looks for something like this. Maybe a little bit bigger, but not that much. So the next thing that you're gonna need are these little guys here. The function of these little guys is to basically control the speed of this motor. This is what it sends a signal from the flight controller to here and to here. And it tells how much you're moving the throttle, and it tells you know, the motor to move more or less depending on the angle of the quadcopter. So when you have, for example, when you're flying and you actually go ahead and pull the stick back, then you're basically telling these 2 ESCs in the front that if the quad is like this, that it needs to be like this, because now you just pull back on the stick, so it needs to move back. And then these 2 let the current and send the current to the motors and accelerate the motors, so the motors can actually generate more thrust and then move back. So that's actually the function of the ESCs. It's an electronic speed controller. That's actually what the ESC stands for, and that's basically what it does. It controls the electricity going to the motors and the revolution that the motor turn in order to make it turn in a different way or to generate more or less power or whatever. So that's what it does. Then you have this. This is what it's called, and it actually says this. It says here is an XT60 connector. This is the female side of the connector, and then the battery has the other part. So basically you always want to have this part on the battery. Always, no matter what, you want to have this part on the battery. Why? Because it's a lot more difficult to have something to throw the battery in a way that these 2 make contact than in a way that these 2 make contact. Ask me how I know. When I started on this, I made the mistake of putting this on the batteries and say, but it's okay, don't worry about it, it's whatever, it's just a different type of connection. I just go ahead and put the other type of connection on the airplane and we'll be fine. Yeah, until the day that I actually throw the battery together with some tools and something like this got in the middle of this, and it made contact and the battery exploded. Yeah, that wasn't pretty. That was nice fireworks, but it was not worth it. So you know, it's always important to have this connector on the quad, this connector on the battery, and also they make some protecting caps that you can put on the battery when you're storing it, when you're transporting with other batteries, other metals. So, you know, that doesn't happen, because if you have a pay-per-click that for whatever reason touches this and this battery will go ahead and actually explode and go catch fire. So you have to be very careful with that. What else? The LEDs. The LEDs, the reason why I have these LEDs is because, as you guys know, this is my son's quadcopter. And when he was starting, I needed a way for him to know what was right, what was left, what was forward, what was back. So these lights are so bright that when you're flying it, even if you're flying it, you know, like this, you're always gonna see, you know, what this color, and you're gonna always see this color. So you just know that, you know, when you're seeing the blue, that's, you know, you're flying forward, or when you're seeing the red, then you're flying forward but to the right, or forward to the left. But if you see inverted, then, you know, if you see the red on the wrong side, you already know that the quad is coming towards you, so you have to fly it differently. And that's the main purpose of the lights. He doesn't use them anymore because he doesn't fly line of sight anymore. But sometimes when he's adjusting something that he needs to fly it a little bit of line of sight, then he'll have the lights in order to go ahead and actually find the proper, you know, alignment or direction of the quad. And then we come to this part here. This part here is the video transmitting antenna. And this is where people start making the mistakes. When you buy the antenna, this antenna comes in two different ways. If you see, these are two antennas. These are two receiving antennas, right? Or whatever, transmitting, it doesn't matter. You can use it for transmitting or receiving. There's really not that much difference between them. But actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and do it the right way, because that antenna is not what I'm looking for. This antenna is what I'm looking for. This one right here. This one that is gonna go ahead and actually, okay, there we go. All right, so these two antennas have the same type of function. You know, they transmit from the quadcopter to the goggles, right? So if you look at the bottom, they have a type of connector, okay? And the reason why I wanted to have the other type of antenna here is because it has a different type of connector. If you can see, this one has a little pin in the middle. These two have a hole in the middle. This two is what you call SMA, RP SMA. These are what I use. But there is also SMA. This is just regular SMA. The one that has the little pin is the one that is called SMA. Now, obviously, if I try to use an SMA on this type of connector, that is the one on the quadcopter, these two are not gonna match. Or if I try to use an SMA on this type of connection, which is the same, it's just not gonna match. So I have to make sure that when I'm buying my antennas, like I buy the antennas from Farview, the Pagodos, and I build them, that when I'm buying them, that I buy the RP SMA. Because if I just ask them for SMA, they're gonna send me this connector, and if they send me this connector, this is not gonna be compatible with what I have. And I have some quads that are compatible with this, but those are old quads before I even knew that there was two different type of connectors, and that they were actually two different types of way of connecting an antenna to this. So, you know, since that's one of the mistakes that I made, I'm passing along that information to you guys, so you guys see that there is a different name, and you have to be aware of those names. And you have to make sure that when you're asking for your antenna, that you're asking for the same thing. My recommendation is whatever you have on your goggles, make sure you have it under your video receiver. Easy way to fix that, if whatever you make a mistake, you can always buy a video adapter that is basically a female here, and then it goes into another female, and then that way you can go ahead and use it on different things. I have a couple of them laying around someplace, so you know, it's something that you need. But basically that's all the parts that you're gonna need to have a quadcopter. This is the ESCs. This is the same as this, that the ESCs that are here, but these are newer, better, and smaller. So this is new technology. This is, you know, a step forward. I also talked to you guys about, you know, when you're building your first quad, don't go and buy a Ferrari to go ahead and learn how to fly. Buy something that you can crash and then learn. Well, that's what I did here. All the stuff that I see here in this quad is cheap because I assumed that he was gonna explode this quad and destroy it. He didn't do it. He's actually flying pretty good, and he hasn't broken anything on this quad yet. So, you know, I'm looking to get some parts for him to get him upgraded because, for example, these parts allow you to go ahead and actually have a different startup on the quadcopter that he wants to have. This one just make noises and you heard them. It goes beep, boop, beep, and it boots up. This one allows you to program the Imperial March from Star Wars into the quadcopter when it boots up, the same way that mine does. And he really wants to have that. So I'm going to go ahead and actually upgrade his ESCs to this ESC so he can have the Imperial March. But pretty much that's it. I gave you all information of what every part on the quadcopter does, and basically how you put it together. Now that you see me putting this part here, and I will put the links to all the parts that I have here, but this one, because I do not recommend this one. I actually don't like it. I got it on one of my builds, and to be honest with you, I'm not gonna use it. First of all, it's too tall. I will probably use this on a 270 or a 225, something like that, but not on any of these small builds because it doesn't give me the space. And to be honest with you, it's too complex for what I like. I like my PDVs to be simple. But I will put a link on the description to this flight controller, to the Joshua Bardwell controller, which I also use, and to the Maytech 405 flight controller. That is another for all-in-one. I only use all-in-one, what they call all-in-one. So like I said, this one has video transmitter. This is the only one that I use that has the video transmitter. The Maytech doesn't have the video transmitter, but it's an all-in-one. It has PDB, OSD, and flight controller. And then I have the Joshua Bardwell, that the Joshua Bardwell is PDB, flight controller, OSD, and it has a regulator for the camera for the video transmitter, which is really good, but you have to have a video transmitter to be able to use it. So, you know, it's not that bad. But yeah, I'm gonna put a link to all of that. I'm gonna put a link to these guys over here, to the ESCs that I'm using nowadays, which is really good. I'm gonna put a link to this motors, if I can find them again. I got this, I think it was on Amazon, but I'm not 100% sure if I can actually get a link for those again, because I went to buy more and the link was actually grayed out. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to actually get a link for that. I'm gonna put a link to this one, but the new series, the one that actually, instead of having the deep switches, that it has something like this, that is a button with an with a little display that tells you the frequency and the channel and all that. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually put you that, and I will put a link to this run cam, but I will recommend you not to start with a run cam like this unless you're building something where you actually can have it that it calls for it. And the reason why is because in order to run this, you have to make sure that your quadcopter is built correctly, that is balanced, that it doesn't have any vibrations. And most likely for most people, the first build is not gonna be the one where you're gonna be able to actually have it vibration free. Also, because if you're building the Chevy Cruze of your quadcopters that is gonna crash, every time that you crash, for example, you see these props are, if you see them, you go like, oh well, these props are fine, they're not broken or anything. But this prop right here, if you see it, you see it right there, it's actually bent right here. It has a little bend here. This little bend, because this prop won't break. This prop will go ahead and actually bend, and it stay bent like that, but it won't break. So I can actually, they're like, they call the unbreakables, but they get a kink, and that kink that it has there creates a lot of vibration. So this vibration, when you have a camera like this, it shows up on the video and it doesn't give you a clear video. So that's why I will tell you, don't put this on your first build. Maybe this will be for your second build, the one that you're gonna fly. Once you do all your fly simulator and you're able to fly and keep that quadcopter in the air for 4 or 5 minutes in a row, then you can go ahead and put this one on the second build. And this will be a camera that I will go ahead and recommend. I don't remember what is the brand of this camera, but this is, I believe, is a $16 camera. It's a very cheap camera. It's a micro, and it's not that bad. Or something like this, the Cadix. I'll put a link if I can find it on eBay, because I believe this camera is already discontinued. But this is a Cadix Turbo F1. It's really good camera. The video that comes out of this camera is really good, and I really like it. And I know my son is really happy with the video, because he says that it looks like, you know, he's like really flying it very clear. So it gives him very good video. So that's will be my recommendation. So I'm not gonna drag this video long anymore. I gave you all the information of all the parts that go into the quadcopter. What I'm gonna do on the next video is I'm gonna go ahead and actually start putting things together little by little. I'm gonna make a series of videos for you guys to actually see how I build. I don't know if I'm gonna build this little guy over here. I'm debating whether I build this little guy, or actually rebuild this little guy, because I had already built this one, or if I go ahead and actually go with the Acrobat. Most likely I'm gonna go with the Acrobat. I also have a QAV 250, which is the one that I've been advising you guys to get as the first Chevy Cruze beat up, you know, crash dummy kind of quadcopter. And I do have one of those in my store, so I'm probably gonna take that one off, and I'm gonna go ahead and build it for you guys, so you can actually follow along and actually do it together. And I'll present a list of the parts that I'm gonna be building, that I'm gonna be using for that. That is easy to obtain, so that way you can actually build it the same way, and it will be very cheap, very simple. So I hope you find this video useful, that helps you and gives you an idea of what goes where and how it goes together. And I hope that you guys subscribe, and if you have any questions, please leave it on the comments, and I will go ahead and answer as soon as I can. I hope you liked the video. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time.